The railway station in Ternopil. Valery Vyachaninov meets his daughter Zhenya, who just arrived on a night train from the capital Kyiv, where she studies at the university. Ternopil, a city with 250,000 inhabitants, is in western Ukraine. Several of the industries that were here during the Soviet times are now closed, and the area is one of the poorest in Ukraine. But the new market economy is succeeding, at least when it comes to real estate prices. The houses where the Vyachaninov family lives cost around $600,000.
Такие дома, предположим, как вот этот вот дом, предположим, могут позволить себе бизнесмены. Тот, кто занимается бизнесом, либо тот, кто на заработках уже давно и, в принципе, присылает сюда деньги за свою работу, сюда, на Украину.
The family is typically Eastern European, and glass jars with vegetables from the own garden litter their home. Irina works as a tax inspector, a relatively new profession, not relevant in the communist era, but many new rules have now been implemented in Ukraine. Most people generally have a minimal understanding of the tax system, and most receive their wages illegally.
У нас люди еще не понимают, что такое белая и черная зарплата, чем это отзовется к старости, что деньги, которые они получают сегодня в конвертах, придет пенсионный возраст, они получат просто самую нижайшую пенсию социальную, они живут сегодняшним днем.
The family house is heated with Russian gas. But as a consequence of Ukraine's steadfast westward orientation, applying for membership of both the EU and NATO, pressure from their eastern neighbor is being more and more heavily felt. Ukraine owes huge sums for unpaid energy.
А что цены на газ возросли не очень сильно. Для нашей семьи это пока что посильная ноша, так сказать. Но я, конечно, боюсь, что цена будет такая, как грозит дядя Путин. Я этого боюсь. Но надеюсь, что так не будет.
From the house, abandoned Soviet factories can be seen. The huge level of unemployment strengthens the will amongst Ukrainians to join the EU. Valery has run his own business for 15 years, employing 5 to install heating systems like here in one of the city's schools. The EU is by now the largest trading partner with the Ukraine. The membership process will put severe demands upon the country to clean up its huge black market economy.
Я думаю, что это хороший процесс и хорошее знамение, хороший будет прогресс, потому что если Украина вступает в Евросоюз, она должна подчиняться тем правилам вообще.
Ukraine, with 47 million inhabitants, is like all Eastern European states, ethnically diverse. There are both Catholic and Orthodox churches, and Polish, Hungarian and Crimean Tatar are spoken besides the main languages of Ukrainian and Russian. Here in the western part of the country, which belonged to Poland and the Austro-Hungarian Empire before the Second World War, Russia is seen as dangerous, especially after the Georgia conflict this summer. People here feel a stronger connection towards Western Europe. The parties are not ethnically oriented, but still there is political chaos. In the main square, President Yushchenko's party demonstrates against the Prime Minister's party. The different government coalitions vary widely. After independence in 1991, the economy crashed. But in the last few years, it has had an annual growth of around 10%.
Вот где уже поскладенный камень, там уже материалы зависят, и я думаю, на следующий год уже будет.
Valery Vyachaninov is a native Russian. Irina is Ukrainian. Neither of them has any great trust in the politicians that rule over them.
Проблема русского языка или какого другого, я считаю, что в Украине не стоит. То есть эти вопросы поднимаются политиками только тогда, когда нужно отобрать часть голосов для того, чтобы они проголосовали.
In the streets of Kiev, there are clear signs of the country's new wealth. even though average salary is around $300 a month.
The real divide between rich people and poor people. We have a, I think, dramatic situation in that. It's a result of capitalism after broken of socialist system.
Valery Chali works at a research institute in Kyiv, debating issues that the countries will face on the road towards EU membership.
New rules of place, transparent rules of place of business and politicians. We have many businessmen in the parliament. It's not the right way to support of political reforms.
There is a huge amount of corruption due to lack of clear rules of law. That is something that needs to be dealt with in Ukraine, where the general opinion is that politicians can be bought. Business interests here have a great influence over politics today, and even in the judicial system, bribes are common. Katerina Panova is a TV journalist who has reported extensively on several cases of corruption. For instance, where land in government forests has been sold for private housing.
They were so sure of what they were doing that they weren't afraid to give me all the documents. I could take them. I was like shooting with a hidden camera, and they would say, how did they get these lands? They would say that we gave the bribes to this person, we gave the bribes to, well, the head of the region and to take this forest away. And they were not afraid of anything.
Outside the presidential office, there are a few hundred protesters. The Land Bureau of Kyiv, which registers land ownerships, has been subject to an illegal takeover and was occupied by force.
Грабували інститут, виносили майно інституту, сейфи з документацією, з якимись цінними речами. Міліція, яка була в той час на місці, навіть відмовилася узнати, що це були за особи, навіть відмовилася встановити особи-нападники.
Even in this case, the protesters allege that the judge had been bribed. The bandits should be imprisoned is written on the posters. But still, just the possibility of freely demonstrating was unthinkable during Soviet times, so this is considered a step forward.
Свідченням і дуже великим підтвердженням того, що ми справді демократична нація, є цей натовп, ця маса людей, яка тут зібралася. Ми не організовувалися, нас ніхто не примушував сюди йти, нам за це не платять гроші.
EU flags fly together with blue and yellow Ukrainian. But EU membership cannot be expected earlier than 2020, and many see the integration process as going too slowly.
Nothing has changed recently, and it doesn't seem that the Ukrainian judicial system is trying to improve itself to enter the European Union. No.
We understand what we have to do, but unfortunately do it very slowly. That's a problem.
Zhenya, the daughter of the Vyachanino family, studies international science at the university. Her friends have mixed feelings towards Europe and the future of Ukraine.
Що Європейський Союз, що НАТО не дадуть рівним рахунком абсолютно нічого.
Мы приобретем, возможно, больше, но можем больше и потерять, так как со стороны и России, и других стран, которые не входят в состав Европы.
Питання вступу до Євросоюзу носить скоріше аспект вільного візового режиму.
Один з найбільших моїх сподівань – те, що Україна врешті-решт стане гідним членом європейської спільноти. І, звісно, це не відбудеться без того, щоб Україна не вступила в НАТО.
13th Airborne Battalion trains patrolling at their base in Zhytomyr. Since independence in 1991, the defense force has been reduced from a respectable 800,000 men to 180,000 this year. Together with a new NATO-aligned organization and training procedures, this has meant a huge change.
For Ukrainian military, it's also huge experience. We analyze our experience, lessons learned, whatever, and use this experience to, I would say, to upgrade or update this program.
The state program for reforming the defense force has as a priority NATO cooperation and some units, like the 13th Airborne, already have achieved the lower NATO standard.
Specially designated units within nation, they trained according to NATO standards, according to NATO procedures, and so on. So that in the case of necessity, these units can be deployed within NATO forces and already be interoperable.
Ukraine has participated in several international peacekeeping missions, in Iraq and Kosovo, as well as others. Training for this takes up a large part of the exercises, like searching cars for weapons at checkpoints. Many of the soldiers here have participated in missions abroad.
Every day we have to study something new to obtain new experience, because I have only one mission, but 2 missions, 3 missions, it's more experience, more better.
The budget of the defense forces is low, under 1% of the gross domestic product. And even though Ukraine takes part in the NATO Partnership for Peace program, the country was not accepted into the membership action plan at the NATO meeting in April this year. Eventually, there will be another decision at the meeting in December, but until then, the capacity of Ukraine to face external threats has grown dramatically.
For sure, it's increased cooperation with NATO, increased capabilities.
It is President Yushchenko and the young Western-oriented elite who have most strongly been pushing for NATO membership, but the Communist Party, as well as a majority of people, do not want this. NATO membership is seen as an unnecessary irritation to Russia, who several times have spoken in dubious terms about the independence of Ukraine. So there are fears that Russia might capitalize on the present political turmoil.
The real threat in Ukraine, that some politician in Ukraine can use this situation and ask support of some countries around us for help in the presidential election, for example. And that's a threat for stability.
Following the president's harsh criticism of Russia during the Georgian conflict, many Ukrainians fear their powerful eastern neighbor. At the same time, the disillusion towards their leaders since the Orange Revolution 4 years ago is at an all-time high.
Просто это доверие, как оказалось, на сегодняшний день растоптали политики, за которых, в принципе, голосовали.
Ну я надеюсь, что, конечно, все останется в своих границах, Россия в своих границах, Украина в своих границах, что не будет никаких абхазского сценария в Украине не будет.
Да.
И российские новости. Вот когда грузинский конфликт.